my mother, father, sisters, brothers, and children. So let's just have a quick tour. Now, my name's Frederick Hart. I always went by Hart. But there's probably a good reason why my first name was Frederick and why I was not called Frederick. I actually had a brother named Frederick that I never knew, who was born 2 years before I was born, plus a little. He was born in about May of 1832, and he died for some reason on April 30th, 1834. Well, I came along on December 11th, 1834. So it would appear that I was already a concern before Frederick passed on. So they decided to perpetuate the name, and I had the burden of living 2 lives, and I tried my best to do that and make up for the loss of my brother. Now, when my, I was the 4th child of Azariel and Mary. My oldest brother, George A., is over here. We keep close track of each other. George A. Was noted for a number of things. He ran for governor of Michigan and went to the convention and would have won the nomination but for 1 vote, lost by 1 vote. He was very well known in the community. When he passed on, a special railroad car was commissioned to go to Hillsdale, and it was noted in the paper as being the largest funeral that was believed to have ever taken place up to that point. He was the oldest child, and he built the brick house. One of his descendants that some of us have gotten reacquainted with is Robert Smith Thompson, published author, a historian. Doug has met with Robert Smith Thompson in South Carolina, I believe.
Columbia.
Another one of my great-grandchildren. He's really the only one from that branch that has kept current with my other great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. So this is his mother and father, but he sort of had 2 mothers because George A. married not 1 but 2 Catherine B. Smiths. The first one died in 1864, and so he remarried another Catherine B. Simmons, I believe was the second one. I should know that. She was my sister-in-law. Okay, that's kind of George A. Now, you want to be careful. Father is buried right here. There's no headstone, but pretty much has to be. Mother is on the other side, and William Henry is to the south of her. South? North.
South.
Okay, other south. William Henry slipped on the ice when he was a boy. He was the 3rd child. He was my next-in-line brother, and was never the same after that. He was crippled for the rest of his life, and he only lived to be 23. And at that time, there was not even a Somerset church, let alone a Somerset cemetery, which came after the church. So he was buried east of the homestead in a small cemetery that I'm pretty sure is still there in some form or another. Haven't been by there lately. I spend most of my time here. So I'm over here. And some of the other special people in my life were my youngest brother, Charles A. Again, the only one born in Michigan. And there is a discrepancy. My son Howard Remus, my 2nd son, my 3rd child, when he was in about 1957, when he was 85, he decided to document some things. And for some reason, he recorded Charles' birth as 1842. So I'm going to leave that as an exercise to my great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids to figure out which date is right. Now, his wife was Helen, and they had children who, some of whom still live in the area. great-grandson Lance has contacted some of the shopper, Lynn Shopper and her brother, and in fact, they have latched on to Uncle Howard, or to my son Howard's work, and continued it on the internet. If you look on the internet, you'll find their line has been extended out at a site. I don't remember what that is. In fact, I'm not even sure what the internet is. I've heard about it.
Backpack. Anybody? Backpack.
Hey. So now I had a sister, a dear sister, Julia, and she was two notches ahead of me in the line of brothers and sisters. She was next in line after George A., and she's buried over here. She married Alonzo Strong and had 3 children. Now, because she was, probably in part because she was a girl, in those days girls married younger than they do now, as I understand. She married when she was 16, and then her daughter married at about the same age. So, as it turns out, the very oldest of the 5th generation that my great-grandson Lance is in, and Bradley is the youngest. The oldest was born in 1903. Her name is Louise Pearson Merrill, and you'll have to find out if she's still with us. She had a daughter, Bernice, who's probably the oldest, would have to be the oldest of the 6th generation, and she had a son, Andrew Exactek, who was born in Detroit in 1947, probably the oldest of the 7th generation. So you had the 7th generation beginning way back in 1947, and we're just starting to kind of see it come along on the Frederick Smith line. Okay? So that's pretty much my immediates. Well, that's my immediate brothers and sisters and mother and father.
Frederick, was Alonzo Strong a Civil War veteran? He could have been by his age.
Don't believe so. Don't believe so.
We honor James Alonzo Strong every Memorial Day as the only Civil War veteran buried in this cemetery.
I have poor memory, you know. I've been down there for a while, and things just aren't as clear as they should be. Okay, now, but let's move back to row 12 here and meet my children and their significance.
Hey, Art, tell the story about your littlest brother, Victor, is it?
Oh, we missed. How can I forget Victor? Well, he was a little guy. Yeah. He helped me find his great-great-grandson, Bradley. Now, Victor would have had.
Or was he your son?
Wait a minute. You're messing with me. Victor
He's your son,
would have had yet another leg of the family, like Howard and George and Floyd did have legs of the family that we are all enjoying today. But when he was 2 years old, his grandmother, Susan Monagle Burr Torrance, because she remarried, we'll talk about her in just a minute, she's right next to him, gave him a bean to chew on, and he shoved it up his nose, and he died. Now, Susan
McMonagle.
Thank you. Sue, we'll just call her Sue. She was my mother-in-law, and she was a wonderful lady. And she must have been, because she lived to be 97 years old. She was with us until 1909, with you all till 1909. I of course, by the way, I had to leave in 1900. The only grandchild that I ever knew when I was here was Harriet. She was born in 1899. So I had a chance to at least see one of my grandchildren here on this plane. But my mother-in-law lived with us for many years. My wife's father died at an early age, at 38. So her mother remarried Mr. Torrance, Ezra Torrance. Great grandson Bradley. Well, you found Ezra Torrance the other day. Can you help me find him again? Anyway, maybe.
I can't
It's
remember.
all right. He's around. He's here. He's in good company.
I think he's up here, like in row 12 or something.
And now, Selena, my wife, and her brother Elliot came to live with the Torrances in Friendship, New York, which is about 10 miles east of Cuba, New York. And those from New York might be familiar with Interstate 86.
Yeah.
It's just off of Interstate 86.
You know where Friendship is?
I know where Cuba is.
Yeah, I know where Cuba is.
And they of course flourished. And then we heard, just to tie it together, the story of going to see President Lincoln. That was my wife and my sister-in-law to be, Sarah Jane Voorhees, who was both concerned about, my wife was concerned about her brother, and Sarah Jane Voorhees was concerned about her fiance, Elliot Burr, who had pleurisy, actually, terrible infection of the lungs, and every time you breathe it hurts. They call it the devil's grip. And so they went to President Lincoln and achieved release from him to take him home and nurse him back to health. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? I'm only going to be here a short time.
that was nursed back to health?
I don't think he's buried here, but
okay.
I was just describing the situation to kind of help tie it together. You heard the story, it's a great story, but
They talked to Abraham Lincoln. They just went right up and said, hey,
they made an appointment. We want our children back.
Oh no, LeGrand J. Oh yeah.
Now, some of my older sister Julia's husband's family are buried back here. The Strong family. Okay. But that pretty much covers my brothers and sisters and my parents. So let's go visit my children quickly.
Okay.
They're back here in row 12. All but one. One of my children lived to be quite elderly and apparently didn't buy a plot until most of the fourth generation folks were buying plots. My oldest child was Lena. Lena never married. She was a teacher. She was a teacher extraordinaire. She won awards. She taught in Kansas. She was asked to teach seminars. And my son Howard recorded quite a bit about her, and you should take a look at that when you have a chance. My next in line, by the way, she was born in 1865, the year the Civil War ended. She really adopted the war. I'm not sure about that.
Brought him back.
Sounds plausible.
Yeah.
I should know that. At any rate, my next in line was George Burr Smith. And he was born in December 1868. And he is the ancestor of Lance. And his son was Howard Burr. And his sister-in-law, as it says right here, was Sarah Jean Burr. Sarah Jean Burr played a very significant role in the family because in 1928, George Burr and Millie Burr, Sarah Jean, and Floyd and Beth all got in a car to go to Milan, where the two girls, Kathleen and Elizabeth, had taken teaching jobs, and Elizabeth was